And since you just sat down, do you have the agenda or do I need to share that?
I have it.
Okay, cool.
But I can't do both at once. I have to split my screen. Boy, if you could share it, please. I got it.
I am sharing, yes?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee for Wednesday, February 16, 2022. It is 7:03. I'm sorry I'm late. Everyone who's at the meeting, I assume, has the agenda. I'm showing it on the screen right now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Steve. So our first item on our agenda, something that's been on our agendas for the past 5 months, is basically an administrative procedure that we have to go through, that we are still holding our meetings virtually due to the state of emergency due to COVID-19. And that will go on indefinitely, but as of October, we no longer have the state edict that allows us to do so. So we have to make the declaration once a month, and this is our declaration for this month. So that's what we're doing, still meeting virtually. Item number 2, welcome, call to order. First thing we like to do is to go through the room with anyone who wants to introduce themselves. If you're a UNNC board member, that'd be nice if you would introduce yourselves. I'm John Arnold.
You're muted.
John, you're muted.
I don't know what happened.
You turned your mute on.
Yeah, because people are entering the room and I'm trying to click them in. I must have clicked the wrong thing. Introductions. Anyone who would wish to make an introduction? I'm John Arnold. I'm Region 6 representative for UNNC in Jefferson Park. I'm the chair of the Planning and Zoning Committee. With me is
Laura Myers. I am also on the UNNC governing board. I live in Angeles Vista. I'm elected at large, and I am the co-chair of the Planning and Zoning Committee.
and Teresa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa Masonette. I represent the West Adams Avenues on the UNNC board.
Anyone else who'd like to raise their hand and introduce themselves, please do so. Steve?
I'm Steve Peckman. I'm the co-chair of the Gas and Oil Subcommittee, and I live in Jefferson Park, a few blocks from the oil site that's on the agenda tonight.
Great, thanks, Steve. Anyone else would like to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm
Kevin?
Jen Blue, and I am a resident of Jefferson Park, and I live near both the Murphy Jewel site and the Jefferson Jewel site.
Great. Kevin, raise your hand. Kevin. You're on mute, Kevin.
There you go. There you go. I got you. Yeah, I'm Kevin Blue, husband of Jennifer Blue, who just spoke up. So residents, close by both sides.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. Richard?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Richard Parks. I'm a longtime resident and serve as the president of Redeemer Community Partnership. Good to be with you tonight.
Great. Thanks, Richard. Anyone? Jessica?
Hi there, my name is Jessica. I'm a neighbor who lives in the area. Just wanted to come to the meeting.
Great, thanks for coming. Anyone else? Oh, there's a lot of hands up. Aurea.
Hi, my name is Aria. I'm here with Jackie on behalf of the Biddy Mason Charitable Foundation, and I'm a land use lawyer. Partner Cecily Barkley might be joining in a little bit as well.
Great. Anyone else? Donna, usually like to introduce yourself. Or Brittany.
Ted had his hand up.
And Ted.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Ted Cordova. I work for B Natural Resources, and good to be here with everybody.
And Brittany.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Brittany. I'm a neighbor of the area and a community organizer with Redeemer Community Partnership. It's good to be here with you all.
Thanks. And everyone, yeah. Okay, anyone else? Okay, if you've raised your hand, please remember to lower it. I sometimes try to track that and I'll do it myself, but please lower your hands if you, unless you have something to say. I'll call on you. Okay, moving on. First item also
Well,
number.
approval of the agenda, John.
I know. So let me finish my sentence. Also on item number 2 is approval of the agenda. We have 2 items on the agenda today, and the both parties involved in these cases are here tonight. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thanks, Teresa. Do I have a
I
second?
second it.
Great. All those in favor, please raise your hand virtually, or if you're on camera, you can raise it visually. Okay. Just so everyone who is a stakeholder in the neighborhood, per our standing rules, is for this meeting can be a voting member. If you are a stakeholder, if you have questions about your stakeholdership, you can resolve those later, and please refrain. Okay. Next up, item number. Looks like anyone object to the agenda? Please raise your hand. Seeing none. Let's go to, so the agenda is approved. Item number 3 is public comment. Anyone who has a public comment on anything that is not on the agenda this evening, if you have public comment on agendized items, you can, we will have a public comment period for each item.
Where is your laptop? I can't get my.
Chris, if you could mute yourself for a moment, that would be great.
It's
on the bed upstairs.
Okay.
The charger is by the bed.
Right, but that's not going to help. Can you get me on your? I'll send.
Marriage. Chris, anyone have a public
I think I muted her.
Anyone have a public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we can go straight to our first case, which is item number 4 on the agenda. It's a ZA 2021 for 21 10708. Sorry, I've been running around all day and my brain is a little bit messed up. 2191 West 25th Street in Kinney Heights. The applicant is the Biddy Mason Charitable Foundation, which is a nonprofit. I'm just going to read what the agenda says. Biddy Mason Charitable Foundation provides support to youth and families impacted by the foster care system. Proposal is to allow the use of an existing residence at the above address, which is in West Adams HPOZ, to be utilized in part as a private club that will provide current and former foster youth a clean and safe place to come together to allow engagement and exchange of ideas on civic, social, cultural, and literary topics, and to build personal and professional character. The applicant is here. I wish to call on them and to present their proposal. And if we didn't summarize your organization correctly, please correct us. And who is going to be speaking on your behalf?
Well, John, I had hoped Jackie could start by just telling us what the Biddy Mason organization is, and perhaps, because I don't know what people know, who Biddy Mason was.
I would love to hear all that. Jackie?
Right. Thank you very much, everyone, for allowing me to share time with you this evening. My name is Jackie Broxton. I'm the president and CEO of the Biddy Mason Charitable Foundation. I'm a Los Angeles native. I grew up in Jefferson Park, so I'm very familiar with this area. The Biddy Mason Charitable Foundation was created in 2013 to do basically 3 things. 1, to raise the public awareness of Biddy Mason, who was an African-American slave that came to Los Angeles in 1851. She was a property of a Mormon slave owner who came to Los Angeles with 12 additional slaves. Biddy Mason was able to petition the court to get her freedom in 1866, and she went on to become one of the wealthiest women in Los Angeles. She earned the art of flipping commercial real estate. But beside that, she was a noted philanthropist. The thing that she's most famous for people who actually know of her, is the creation of First AME Church, along with 8 other men in the living room of her home. We are an outgrowth of First AME Church. However, we are a separate 501c3. What we do, let me just start by saying this. There is a challenge in foster care in Los Angeles County. Los Angeles County has the largest number of foster children in the nation. There are 30,000 children within the system. Annually, you have a certain percentage of those children who are emancipating out at 18, often to very uncertain futures. Since 2018, we have been granting scholarships to current and former foster youth who want to either go to four-year universities or vocational school. And to date, we've given out about $263,000 in scholarships. We want this, hopefully you will agree with us, and this house will become a place where they can not only come and get information, but also apply for scholarships. And we will also be able to help reunify families. It is not a group home, which is why we call it a private club. One of the reasons we call it a private club is because the youth will actually be given membership cards, and they will have to scan these cards when they come in for tracking purposes. Recently, we received a single gift of $300,000, which was given to us to create a scholarship endowment fund. So that money has been put in a brokerage account so that we will be assured of always being able to give scholarships to current and former foster youth. In talking with current and former foster youth, the ones who've been successful cite two things as being critical to their success. One is access to higher education, which Biddy Mason firmly believed in. And the other is consistent mentoring, whether that be by one person or by a group. And we feel that having this property will enable us to provide that consistent mentoring. I know that sometimes people have very negative views about foster care and what foster care is all about, but I think our numbers will hopefully illuminate you as to the potential of these young people. We have given 246 scholarships since 2018 for that a little under $300,000. Annually, we have to turn away probably about 75 to 100 kids because we don't have enough funding. So this year we started the year off with phenomenal fundraising success as a result. In addition to that $300,000 that I mentioned earlier, there have been many large donations that come in. So we are anticipating 2022 probably being the largest year for scholarships for us. Our big emphasis is scholarships and providing these kids with a foundation so that they can be successful. Currently, we have 4 kids that are working on PhD programs. Many of the kids that we fund are in master's level programs because once they get to that level, it's often hard for them to get funding. I would like to open it up and see if there are any questions that you have of us. We're governed by a 13-member board comprised of community members. It's a diverse board. We have a variety of ethnicities on the board. It's not just all members from First AME, although we do have several that are members of the church. So with that, I want to allow you the opportunity to ask me any questions you may have.
Are there any questions from anyone in the audience? I know I have a few, but if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. Chris.
Yeah, I actually am aware of your organization, and I think it's a fabulous organization supporting foster youth, particularly foster adults who've turned out of the system and need additional support. I was wanting to know more details about your actual proposal with the property. Scholarships seem to be able to happen on a different kind of level. You talk about a club. What sort of club and what sort of hours of operation are you considering or asking permission for?
We are considering being open Wednesday through Sunday, closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. Our hours would be probably 10 to 6. And we do one large event a year, which is the celebration of Biddy Mason's birthday, which happens on August 15th. And we actually did that in 2021, and we used valet parking because we didn't want to negatively impact the neighborhood with parking. So that would be something that we would continue to do. Youth would be coming here to get, as I said, to get services and support, counseling. We also give away free clothing because many of them do not have clothing for here. Well, there's one example that I always like to cite because it's particularly special to me. We had a girl who was in her last year at Cal State LA. She applied for a scholarship, and in her personal statement, she wrote that she was teased at work because of the clothing that she wore, because all of her clothing had burned up in a fire. So we got a large donation of clothing from a woman who wore very expensive clothes, but she was 6 feet tall and she wore a size 12 shoe. So not everybody can wear those clothes. So when I wrote to the young lady, I said, I have some beautiful clothes here from Saks and Neiman's, but the owner was 6 feet tall and wore a size 12 shoe. So she immediately wrote me back and she said, I'm 6'1" and I wear a size 12 shoe. So we were able to totally outfit her with clothing. So those are the kinds of things that, that we like to do because it makes a difference. When you're in your early 20s, clothes are everything. And to not have them just kind of puts you further behind the 8 ball. And if you grew up in the system, living in group homes, every time you move, you lose something or it's stolen from you while you're in the group home. So they come out most of the time with everything they own in trash bags. So Savinar Luggage has been very generous to us over the years, and we have suitcases that we can actually give them to put their clothes in.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. Donna.
Hi, Jackie. I wanted to know how much staff or who would be in the actual facility or the space, and how it would impact the community as far as cars coming and going and how many cars would be used at the site at any given time.
I envision staff of 3 to 4 licensed clinical social workers. Most of these kids don't have vehicles. So it's not gonna, I don't see it impacting the neighborhood in a negative way in terms of vehicles.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I have a question. Did you buy the house for this purpose, or has the house been part of the 501c3 for a long time? What's the history of your?
It's a very interesting story about the house. The house actually belongs to California Lutheran Home Foundation. They purchased the house for us, paid cash for the purchase, and they charge us $10 a month rent.
And then also, what is the nature of the CUP? So everyone, you might have noticed on the agenda, it's a conditional use, which is a conditional use permit, which means that a use is allowed in the zone, but subject to some discretionary approvals. Jackie, do you know the specifics of the conditional use and what the zone is and what
I'm going to let Aria answer that question, which is why he's here, in case you got too technical with me.
That's what we're here for. Aria, can you answer that for us?
Yeah, this is an R1 zone, and the uses permitted in that zone include things like, believe it or not, schools, churches, among other things. What is permitted as a conditional use is a private club, which seemed to fit well with the vision here of creating a space for foster youth to be members of and come to and learn. And so the conditional use permit hasn't been designed yet with parameters around it with respect to hours or occupants or things like that. But broadly speaking, it's just a nonprofit private club, as you see on the application.
And so you said there's no parameters yet, or there might be, or does this kind of CUP need parameters, or is it just or conditions?
That's a good question, and I leave it to city staff to evaluate before they recommend to the zoning administrator make a decision on it. I would suspect that it would come with certain conditions. As we go through this process, we will describe to city staff more specifics as to the operations, such as hours and occupancy and things of that nature. But as it stands right now, we're early in that process.
So what I'm hearing then is that this is the initial step. And so if we have suggestions or concerns, I'm not saying we do, that this should be the time to state them and say, oh, what if, looking for alternatives if the community has such alternatives to offer. It'd be a good time to voice those things right now.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. The goal here is really to provide meaningful service to the community and fill a gap. And be cognizant of its impact on the surrounding neighborhood. One of the benefits is this house is just north of 25th and the south side is along the library. Around the corner, there are several other philanthropic institutions, I think a Buddhist temple and a church. The end of the block is vacant. So it's not like in the heart of the West Adams Historic District. It's sort of on the fringe. We are very aware of what impacts it might have.
Thanks.
So we're open to your input and consideration. That's part of the reason we're here today.
Great, thanks. Steve.
Thank you, John. I have a few questions. One is, I don't understand what the historic district relevance is if they're not asking for a change in the external construction of the property. The other is, I'm not sure, maybe someone can answer this question. Is this a change in the current use that's permitted?
So I can answer the relevance to HPOZ. We put it in parentheses because there isn't any direct relevance. Just
Okay.
a note of location. But yes, you're correct, Steve. There is no relevance as it unless there proposes change, but that goes to a different organization.
Right. It goes to an HPOZ board.
So yes, you're correct.
So is there any change to the currently allowed use that's being requested?
No, there's just an additional use that's being allowed in connection with an application. So for example, it's an R1 zone, right? And it's being used as a single family home. That's not going away. We're just pursuing an entitlement to allow a nonprofit private club to operate in that same space.
I see. Okay. That's a little different. So my next question is, are there other clubs on the block or the adjacent blocks? Like, are there block clubs? Are there other clubs in operation within the 3 or 4 block vicinity of this home?
No, I haven't
So
done
there's
an
no block club or anything.
No, I mean, I haven't exhausted every corner, but from my own research on Google and the city's website, the nearest club is north of Highway 10. And
okay, because I know there are block clubs in Jefferson Park just below on Adams. So the other thing that you did mention is that there is a Buddhist organization on the other side of the library. And I know that they have meetings there often. And I'm wondering what would be the difference between what occurs at the Buddhist facility and what would occur here.
I'm not familiar enough with the Buddhist organization and what they do, but if you're telling me that they have meetings, then we would be having meetings here as well. We would like to open the house up to the community to have meetings here. I would love for us to have a neighborhood book club at some point, but I'm not familiar enough to know what they do there. But if they're having meetings, then I don't see that there's too much difference in what we would be doing.
As far as I know, there's no, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember my 15 years on UNNC ever looking at a CUP for similar things like that. Not to.
I think it's more of a broader category of institutional uses, right? And there's many of the historic homes the bigger ones, this is what makes this one different is it's a littler one. The bigger homes have been purchased and used for many years with conditional use permits as institutional uses. So one example farther west on Adams would be the Busby Berkeley Guasti Mission of Spiritual Inner Awareness. That building does not have a conditional use permit, but when they purchased the other mansion farther west at 9th Avenue on the south side of Adams, and I'm forgetting the McGowan, and then the nickname Baby McGowan, the two mansions there, they did have to get conditional use permits. Much closer to this location is the now known as LA 84. So they have all kinds of kind of approvals like that. But then they bought the house. It's almost kitty corner. It's on the corner of Gramercy and 25th. And they did not need a conditional use permit, even though it was an expansion of the use. And I think it's like staff works there. You know, they have some reception staff works there, but it's a much larger complex.
So it sounds like this is definitely not without precedent in the neighborhood.
Oh yeah,
And
this is not precedent setting. So I think what we're looking at is, will it be impactful?
Yeah.
But it's not setting a precedence per se.
Right, and it sounds like the rules might vary from application to application.
Absolutely, because there's, in the end, the planning staff and then the zoning administrator will sort of think about what could be the impacts and then create conditions to mitigate those impacts. And I may be using the wrong word when I use the phrase mitigate.
Chris?
I wanted to ask, since it is a single family residence and you're talking about daytime meetings, is there anyone residing at the property? Is it occupied during the evening hours and on when they're, say, after your foundation activities? Is there like a permanent caretaker, a permanent resident, or multiple residences there?
No. I would like to invite all of you at your convenience to come and see the house, because I think that would answer a lot of your questions in terms of the usage. I'm here most days, so.
So are you saying there is no residence or?
No, there's no resident here.
Okay, because as a neighborhood, it's nice to actually know that properties are occupied in the evening, but actually I am your next door neighbor. And so if I know someone's not there and I ever see anything at odd hours, then I know to be responsive to you because there isn't someone on the site. So it's nice to know if properties are occupied during particularly the evenings and sometimes on weekends when there aren't the normal activities. But it looks like you will be having gatherings on the weekends as well. So thank you.
Donna, thanks, Chris. Donna?
Well, I'm thinking of the Wilfendale Club and its CUP and how it is used and the impacts to the community were things that were gone over and dealt with some years ago because they've been there 70 years. And we've definitely gone down to deal with some of the issues. It is a residential community with families and all the things that happen there in. So those are just things I'm thinking of. With it being that type of club, there are meetings, there are events going on there. Parking had to be dealt with in another way. It could not impact at all. You could not have just last minute get-togethers and such. They needed to contract with Holman Methodist Church for their parking. They had to contract with an ongoing valet service. So there are many things that made Wilfendale easier on the people that live there. So I was just thinking of that. There's a whole lot to actually having a single family home in the middle of a residential community. and the impacts, not withstanding just having people come in at all kinds of times and the things that they do on a regular basis. So it's just something I wanted to mention.
Thanks, Donna. Any other questions for Jackie or the rest of the organization, Steve?
So if it sounded to me like Jackie and Aria have two different positions about solidifying what would be the activities and the operating hours. And is this something that then comes back to the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting?
It sounds like that, but Laura, it sounds like they're at the very beginning, and we'll give our input, and the planning department will give their input.
Right.
And I think this is the start. But Laura, do you have any?
So this is
Well,
the introduction of it.
Yeah, this is our, and we could post there, what's sitting in our agenda packet is the application, the proposed findings, the site plan or plans. We could share all of that, but it's a house.
So-
You can tell me whether or not we want to see it. But I do actually have a technical question. When I looked on the case summary site yesterday, I think, it showed that the case was, quote, on hold. Do we have any insight? Is that because the planning department is thinking about some of these conditions, if you know?
Aria, do you have a?
No, I'm unaware. I think the application was submitted in December and perhaps I don't know why they're waiting.
It could be on hold because whoever is the assigned staffer is on hold. I mean, in other words, sometimes it goes on hold because they are asking you questions that you have to take some time to answer. But you're saying that's not the situation.
No, we haven't heard from them yet. We're under the impression that they're processing the application.
Right. So it might be simply saying that because the person who's assigned is out for what might be the obvious reason of COVID or other staffing issues.
So
I do have, wait a minute, I do have one question that I don't know, Jackie, if you guys went over. Did you mention that it's also an archive, that you also have an archive?
Well, that was why I kind of wanted you to come and visit the house. We actually have a reproduction of a Nathan Zackheim mural that depicts Biddy Mason that hangs in the living room, and a rather extensive art collection. So when you talk about a facility for youth, it's not the typical facility. And that's another reason why we wanted to make it available to the community.
Great. And so Aria, what's your, or Jackie, what's your timeline, or what's your expected timeline or hope for timeline for this project?
I think we expect planning staff to get back to us by the end of March. It's our hope that your recommendation goes in before then too. And the home has been bought, and we're looking to just get this going really orderly and as soon as possible.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Well, I have
Okay, Laura?
Well, it's not a question. It's a question for you, John, not for them at the moment. I personally feel that there are too few programs and fewer all the time for emancipated foster youth, meaning you're in the system till you're 18 and then you're kicked out and you have no support. And we had a few other programs in our community and they are finished, done, not funded. So to me, in a broad statement, anything that would help this underserved category of people is good with me, so long as it doesn't impact the community. But my question for you, John, is that our agenda would allow us to act or would allow us to table. I mean, there's a possible action. I just heard what the applicant said about as soon as possible.
So I would say, is there any concern? I haven't heard. Is there any objection or any concern or any ideas for a condition that anyone has? And if not, we want to wait for see if there's any hands up on that. I would entertain a motion if someone wants to make a recommendation to the governing board regarding this case. But I'd like to hear Chris, I heard a mild, not really concerned, but sounds like an after hours security we have a presence there.
I think, given that we don't have any of the nuts and bolts,
Yeah.
but just a concept, and the concept sounds great, but the devil's always in the details. I would have no problem supporting a motion as long as it had the parameters of what was presented tonight, that it was to be utilized on certain days at certain times, that it would be 10 to 6, closed on Monday, as stated to, and shared with us tonight, that we would approve based on those parameters, because those are the only parameters we have. A letter of support, if we're going to do a letter of support tonight, because it seems a bit cart before the horse, even though the concept's great, to not have the actual details of the conditional use. So, but I would certainly support the concept, and with a letter that reflects what's been shared tonight, that these are the uses, and these are the hours of operations, and these are the conditions for which it's projected to be used as we know them.
And the only thing I could say to that, things might change, like someone might ask for a condition, some other entity. And the only thing I would suggest that we add to that is that a final approval, when the whole CUP is written, that we get another bite at the apple, just to say even if it's a reaffirmation, we affirm our support from February 16th.
But if a tentative
something like
helps, I would be at least supportive of a tentative letter with the conditions stated as we understand them, and maybe some flexibility to review any final CPU changes or something. But if they need a letter supporting the organization and its mission, with those conditions, I would be in support that we do such a letter.
Do you want to make such a motion?
I'm going to wait and hear what the other people have hands.
The next hand I saw was Steve.
So I agree with Chris. My concern is that we don't have the details yet. It would be very unusual in writing. It would be very unusual for this committee to move forward with unrestricted support of such an application without those details. I think it's an incredibly worthwhile program, what's been presented, and would support it with appropriate written details. So I support Chris's concept.
Next hand I saw was Donna.
I think we're so far ahead of the horse that the cart needs to, the horse needs to catch up with the cart. We don't have enough information, and we're talking about the lives of the community there. I really don't think we have. I love the program, support it totally. Our community would love to do what we can for the program, but we're actually supporting something we have no information about, because it's not laid out to the degree we need in order to put anything on anything. That's how I feel.
Laura, thanks, Donna.
Yeah.
Laura?
Yeah, I feel that what we need is, even if it's a 1-page, a list of bullet points of the conditions. You laid some of them out, the hours, the days that they're open, once a year, there's a birthday celebration. But I feel like we could easily help, John, you and I could talk with Jackie and Oreo over the next 10 days and bring this back on the March 2 agenda with a list of proposed conditions. So all we have is a list of proposed findings and the application itself, but it does not include the list of proposed conditions. If that could be pulled together, we could take it to, tentatively, we can also do it on the March 3rd governing board.
And Aria and Jackie, would that proposal be helpful to you? I think what I hear is there's support of the organization. It's just having the exact written what is in front of us isn't there. Do you need something sooner than that, or is that what Laura just provided?
Well, we couldn't be sooner than that anyway, John, because
I'm thinking, would a letter that we like your organization, would that help? Or if it sounds like in 2 weeks, which is our next meeting, we could bring something that has more specific conditions that you've stated yourself, and then we could bring that for a vote.
Yeah, I think that would work.
Yeah.
Okay, so I suggest that we, Laura and I get together, anyone else who wants to be involved. I think we can do that, maybe not.
No, not so much.
So Laura and I will get together with the applicants. We will write something that we can present at the next meeting, and we'll take a vote at the next meeting.
Cool.
Great. Excellent. I see a thumbs up from Steve, and I see no thumbs down. So let's call that as our direction, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right.
Well,
Thank you very
we'll
much.
probably see you a little bit before or talk to you at least.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the invitation is open to come and visit.
I'll take you up on the tour.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you,
I appreciate
Jackie.
Thank you.
Visiting tonight.
Thank you, Jackie, for your presentation. Thank you, Aria.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Next up is item number 5. It's a CUP. Sorry, I'm gonna pass. We have a subcommittee with co-chaired by Chris and Steve Peckman.
Right.
I'm
I'm
going
gonna
to
pull
pass-
up, yeah, John, I'm gonna pull up the agenda item again on the share while they.
So I'm going to pass the baton to that subcommittee, that's the co-chairs, and describe what we're seeing tonight, and introduce the applicants, and then let it flow like that. So Chris and Steve.
Steve, you want to take the lead?
You can, Chris, if you want to. Otherwise, go ahead.
I just blew into town.
Okay,
Sure,
I'll
I'm
take
gonna
the
let you
lead.
take the lead.
I'll take the lead.
Okay,
You can
the
take,
two of you
you
are
can take a
taking the
nap
lead.
during this part.
Wait. The two of you are taking the lead, but please review the agenda item as stated.
Yeah.
John worked
Yeah. So
carefully on that.
Thank you, John. The agenda item is case number zoning administrator 15227 OPA4 plus PA6 dated September 14th, 5,000 years ago, 2007. It's a plan approval, review of conditions and compliance for 2126 West Adams, which is the Murphy drill site. And I believe Ted Cordova is here representing the operator. Is Ted still here? Oh, good. I see him. I couldn't see you. Thank you, Ted, for raising your hand. I see you're in a different environment. That's why I didn't recognize you there. So what's happened is the ZA has done a review, and there's a review of the conditions of the operation on the site. If I remember correctly, Ted and ENB, which is the company, the operator, has requested of the ZA that you will do 3 additional things. I think if I remember that correctly. And Ted, what I would like to ask is that you take 5 minutes and no more than 5 minutes to kind of outline where you're at in the process and what you're asking for.
And sorry, and just to tee this up, that the committee is called, the subcommittee, Steve, is called, what is the name of our subcommittee that you?
It's the Oil and Gas Subcommittee of the Planning and Zoning Committee, I think is the name.
Something like that. So it's basically focused just on oil and gas issues in our neighborhood, including this site. And we've been working with the various groups. We have at least 2 in the neighborhood over the past 5,000 years. But it's been about 10 or 12 years that this has been, that we've been discussing various aspects of this. So this is.
Oh boy,
this is
you
another-
wish it was only 10 or 12,
Oh
John.
my God, has it been
The
longer than that?
recent cases are probably
Yeah.
10 or 12 years. Of course, there
20.
was stuff going on at Murphy Drill Site long before that, which had to do with the recent case was the gas burner. But the P&Z committee has also been involved in the closure of the 4th Street site, which was part of the 3 sites. So for those of you who don't remember, Murphy is the centerpiece, and it's at Gramercy and Adams, is the centerpiece of a triad of sites. The other site was at 4th Avenue across from the school. And then the other site is the Jefferson site at Budlong. And the 4th Avenue was closed, and that's going through some process of remediation. And the Jefferson site, I believe, is in the process of closing, which leaves the Murphy site as the remaining of the 3.
Great.
So
Thanks.
Ted, if you would take 5 minutes to kind of outline what's going on and what you're asking of the ZA.
Sure.
Right,
Thanks.
and I temporarily posted, I'm gonna stop that share, so Ted, you can be center screen.
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here tonight. And I'll try and won't take the full 5 minutes. But if I start going over for some reason, just gong me out. I think that, the update is pretty simple and straightforward. The city, the zoning and the chief zoning administrator had written to E&B asking for us to file a plan approval application, which we did. And the purpose of the plan application is to review our the conditions of the site, as well as our compliance, not only with those conditions, but in general. We, without other agencies, for example, CalGEM and LA Fire and Coupa and South Coast Air Quality Management District and other folks. And so we, back last year, I think it was July, we submitted our entire application and pretty big file folders into the city, and are happy to go through that review process with the city. We're supportive of their review. We're supportive of the review of our conditions. We're open to a discussion about those. And we've, on top of that, we've proposed ahead of their review, 3 specific, we'll call good neighbor provisions that we've worked with the community at another site that worked well for that particular site in the LA City. And so we're transferring over those conditions as part of this application as well. And so I'll just give a brief overview of those. There are annual inspections. So pretty straightforward. We're just asking the city to do a review of our site on an annual basis. This is something that the city has proposed, has a motion, and have been in kind of designing the program phase. And it's something that we did on one of our sites back in 2017. And we've now we're in our 3rd year of doing it at another site. So we're proposing that same sort of process here. And it's until the city adopts their own citywide inspection program. Another one is just the supplemental reporting. So if there's any emergency event, there's just some extra reporting protocols that we would do that aren't part of our conditions right now. So that would include letting any appropriate city agencies and entities, including the Los Angeles Fire Department, the Petroleum Administrator, and the local council district know about things as we have to report them to other agencies such as the state agency. And then the 3rd one is air monitoring. We've done this at our other site. We've implemented it, and it's a good pilot program that we started out at our Rancho site. And we're basically proposing a condition that requires for us to do fence line air monitoring. And so we're moving forward in that direction at all our sites. And we think this is a good thing for the city to adopt, and something that South Coast Air Quality Management District is looking at working on this year as well too. So those are the 3 conditions. And then lastly, I'll just mention before I think we might be running out of the 5 minutes here, is we had a question from a community member about our microturbines. And so we had some back and forth. And so we've proposed a question to the city about what happened to condition 43. It was in the original, which prohibits on-site power generation, was in the original case, but it hasn't been in previous cases. But there's a lot of references to the microturbines in multiple previous cases. And so we just want to have a conversation with the city about what transpired with previous operators in the city in regards to on-site power generation and specifically the microturbines that are on the site.
Thank you, Ted. That was really helpful. As I recall from the previous meetings we had, some members of the broader community have brought forward questions about possible violations at the site. I think that you've gone over them pretty much in depth previously, but I just wanted to go back to a question that arose in the last meeting. There were specific issues about outstanding violations and violations that may have occurred during the process of transition of operators. And I just wanted to, again, try to clarify that those outstanding violations and any violations or reports that occurred during the transition, those have all been addressed with the appropriate city agencies or state agencies.
Yes. So, yeah, just to go back and just give a little background on it, there were, with Sentinel Peak Resources, the previous operator, there was an annual inspection with CalGEM, the state agency. There were some violations, a number of them. And when we acquired the site, we had to take care of those. And we did, and those are all cleared.
Okay, great. I have other questions, but maybe people who are attending the meeting may have some questions. Are there any questions for Ted or anyone else?
And Steve, I should probably just as a kind of next steps, like status, it's our understanding that our public hearing date has not been set. And it's likely, first we heard, maybe in December of last year was going to happen. Then that got pushed back to January, February, and then it got pushed back to February, March. And, now we're here in February and we still don't have a date. And so now it could be anywhere between March and potentially May.
Okay. Well, that's all at the mercy of the city.
Yeah.
Steve,
Okay.
I see no hands. Anyone?
I have a question though, and then I see that Laura has her hand up. So regarding the annual inspections by the city, I know that previously when there was a petroleum administrator, I don't believe there's currently a petroleum administrator. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong.
There is.
There is now one. Okay, great.
Yeah. So Udo Took was the previous
right.
petroleum administrator. He got hired by the governor to become the supervisor of the oil and gas supervisor of the state agency, CalGEM. And Erica Blyther was the interim, and now she's been officially the petroleum administrator.
Okay, great. So I've gone to meetings where the previous petroleum administrator, Odawak, had indicated to in public meetings that he had done inspections, but those inspections ended up being desk inspections, where essentially paper was filed with the city and the petroleum administrator reviewed the paper, never really leaving his desk and going to the site. Is E&B proposing actual on-site inspections, or is this going to be more paper inspection?
Yeah, we hope it's not paper inspections. I mean, that's how they're doing it now. Yeah, you're exactly right. I think they call them desktop inspections, but it's our position that it's important for the city to, as part of their inspection process, to be on site.
Great. Great. And that's baked into whatever you filed with the city, is that it would be an on-site inspection annually?
We can't force them to do that, but
Right, but that's your request.
yeah, we invite the city all the time.
Okay.
But yeah, that's we're happy to make that part of our request.
So I think the community would absolutely appreciate the on-site inspections over review of paperwork.
Yeah.
And of course, just so community members here will know that when reports are filed with any agency about things that the community feels are happening at the site that they think are not appropriate, a form of inspection does occur. So for example, the fire department could come out or other agencies could come out and you open the gate and let them in and they do an inspection. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Any agency that comes to our site, we've never turned them away, ever.
Yeah. Laura, you had a question?
Well, two things. I don't know if these are questions or one's certainly a comment. There's been a little bit back and forth over these months between the zoning administrator and the ENB, where the zoning administrator asks a question or three, and then they respond to it and they more questions. So the problem with how we're trying to move this case forward is we don't, and yet they're not scheduling the hearing, is that we don't know what further questions might come up, and then we have to move again. And so that's, I'm just saying, one of the reasons why we're having these multiple meetings is because of that. But also, Ted, I think you guys have also started, because Chris and I were copied on an email, I think, where you're sending out notifications to the planning department of your activities. And could you describe that?
Sure. Yeah, it's just our effort in being more proactive and letting the city know what we're doing on our site that's outside of just normal operations. So it's, I think it's just something that we've gotten good feedback from the planning department and the petroleum administrator that they appreciate the increase of communication and level of transparency.
That's great. Before I get to you, Richard, I'll just make one more comment because I forgot to make this earlier. That there was also an agreement between this committee and ENB that my co-chair Chris and I would meet with Ted and other representatives from ENB to discuss a process for making the air monitoring data available to the public. And we're still working on a time and date to kind of meet and get that together. But that's something that we have promised the community we will try to work out. And I know that Ted's agreeable to do that. Richard, you had a comment? Unmute, please.
Yes, thank you, Steve. I wanted to make a couple of comments. Mr. Cordova just made a statement here that they've never turned inspectors away. And I hope that there's an opportunity to come back to this committee and share with you times when inspectors were turned away. They were denied entry into the Murphy drill site by ENB. And so, I can't give you that data right now in real time, but I can tell you that that has happened. It's well documented by the AQMD, and I'd like you to have that information. Secondly is that, the longer ENB operates, just month by month, the more the violations mount. And so there's two violations I'd like to draw your attention to. One is, it has been talked about here, but the scope of it has become a little bit clearer with time. AQMD issued a notice of violation to ENB in December for a leak greater than 50,000 parts per million. Once we got the inspector's notes, we can now see that the leak was actually at a greater than 100,000 parts per million, which is twice the explosive level of methane gas. We have, over the last 8 months, been really trying to get the city to focus on the fact that ENB has consistently been leaving the drill site unattended at night. sometimes for up to 5.5 hours. On January 5th, LAFD Coupa issued a notice of violation to EMB for leaving the drill site unattended. And that just represents a fraction of the instances where this has been true. It's so unconscionable to think about a company letting its staff walk away from a drill site in a densely populated urban neighborhood, leaving it unattended for hours on end, for months on end, even when they were notified here at this meeting in October that that was going on, and still they took no action, no corrective action. So I just, you know, I really think it's important that this committee not be fooled by the things that are being proposed here. They're grossly insufficient. So the city of Los Angeles has a history of discriminatory and disparate treatment of South LA communities relative to West LA communities that have drill sites. And so the conditions that we need to protect our community here are those conditions that were extended to the West LA drill sites decades ago. And that includes enclosure of the facility, a requirement that electric workover rigs be used, not diesel as EMB uses currently. And 3, that this condition 43 be reinstated so that there's no burning of gas in our neighborhood at the facility to power this drill site instead of just using a utility connection, which is true, again, of the West LA drill sites and has been a requirement for decades. So those are the 3 protections that would really strengthen the protections for public health and safety here. And again, these conditions, these 3 things were given to the West LA drill sites decades ago.
Thank you, Richard. That's very helpful. Any other questions or comments for Ted? Ted, before I get to other questions and comments, do you want to respond to Richard? I'll give you this opportunity to respond.
Sure. I would love to see the documentation for his comments. That's what I'd request.
Okay, great. Hopefully Richard will be able to provide those. Laura, before I get to you, I'm gonna defer to my co-chair, Chris. Chris, you're muted. Still muted. Still muted. While you work that out, I'll go to Laura. Laura?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask Richard. I didn't really hear your condition number 1.
So the 3 conditions were enclose the drill site, should have electric and not diesel workover drills, and not burn gas to generate electricity,
Right.
I think was the 3rd one.
Okay, so because I thought I heard close it down, and it's like, well, then you don't need the other.
No,
Yeah.
I don't believe Richard
And
said that.
and close. Thank you. Thank you.
Enclosed, EN.
Is that
Steve,
right?
That's right. Enclosure, and then it's workover rigs.
Workover rigs, sorry.
Electric workover rigs, not
Yeah.
diesel. Right. And
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Sorry.
Yes, no problem.
Chris, can you unmute?
Okay.
There you go.
I would just like Richard to forward the documentation for the things he's alleged to the Planning and Zoning Committee, so we can actually share those, post them so people in the community can review them. And because I think it's very important from both sides that there be full transparency and accurate documentation. And I would also like to ask Ted, would EMB have any objections to the types of conditions that Richard just outlined, such as maybe additional enclosure of the site, using electric workover rigs rather than diesel, and potentially no burning of gas to power on the site? Would those be things that EMB could be open to embracing?
Chris, I appreciate the question. I'm not authorized to accept or deny any sort of condition proposed tonight. But what I can say is that if that's something that you want to add to the oil and gas subcommittee for discussion as part of our working group, we'd be happy to explore those options and kind of walk through them all together.
Okay, appreciate that.
That would be
Thanks.
great. I think we should do that. Any other questions or comments? We want everyone to have a chance to air their concerns or get answers. This is a great opportunity to talk to the representative from the operator. Jen, if you would unmute, please.
Yes, thank you. I think I'm wondering, why is the city allowing this to happen if it has required these protections for the West Side facilities? So this sounds like we're asking the operator whether they would be willing to make these, when it sounds like this is required. It's not an option for drill sites that are operating in West LA, and that should be a citywide enforcement. And so I believe shouldn't our position as a neighborhood council be more in alignment with city protections that are citywide?
I think that certainly that protections at individual drill sites where those protections apply to other communities should be applied equally, yes. Absolutely. I certainly would agree with that proposition. Oftentimes what happens though the city objects to piecemealing in terms of applicants to city planning, oftentimes the city's own lack of coordination of its own requirements is piecemealed depending on community. But I think that that's a viable suggestion that this committee should consider in moving any proposal forward. Laura?
Yes, thank you. I'm aware that from the early 60s, all of the drill sites were not to be burning gas, right? That was an original condition, and I think that was probably everywhere. But I'm also aware that I think it's the Public Utilities Commission, but somebody, some regulatory authority eliminated the ability to pipe the methane gas out of there by SoCal Gas, which Steve, you may know more than me. I mean, this is like a vague memory from a decade ago with pinhole openings and all the pipes.
Yeah, but what's the relevance to this, Laura?
Well, where's the gas? Where's it supposed to go? I mean, what's the best? No, from a request for conditions point of view, what's the best condition to have for the use of that gas? So in other words, of late, it sounds like prior operator somehow got permission to put in the micro turbines and burn the gas off.
That's not clear though.
But it's not clear. No, that's what I'm saying. It's like
it's not clear that a prior operator actually had approval for the micro turbines, and that's been a subject of contention for many years.
I understand that. I'm saying, okay, I'm not trying to argue for it. I'm saying from a community point of view, and I do not know the answer, what is the best environmental response, the thing that would cause the least impact on our community with, somehow losing, reuse. I mean, I don't know, where's the gas supposed to go? And would that be the condition that we would support, whatever it may be, which I don't know the technology or the geology.
Right. So Laura, your question is, what happens to the gas if they're not going to burn it to create electricity or use it for other purposes?
Well, they're definitely not allowed to ship it off in trucks. That condition is shipping it away.
So whatever that is, but I think that's aligned with Jen's question,
right?
Which is, if there's a best city practice or a best practice, why isn't that applied across the board? And I think that's a legitimate question to ask.
Well, it's also, is a micro turbine burning it the best, or is something else the best? What is the best? I don't know what is the best.
I hear you. So I think
Chris might
that,
know what's the best. She's a geologist.
Well, in response to Jen's question, you know, the inconsistencies within the operations of the city of Los Angeles are myriad and vast. But those are regulatory issues that we all need to press the city to follow up through.
That's
We
right.
actually have an operator in front of us who has in multiple public meetings been actively pressing the city to put in place thorough annual inspections. And so it's a very rare situation where you have an industry saying, please put quality requirements out there and use them universally through this industry. So I agree with Jen. Every effort should be put on the city of Los Angeles to actually complete their inspection ordinance and to put it out in practice throughout the city. It's taken years of public meetings and nothing has actually, you know, come out of that. So the city is negligent in that regard, in my opinion.
thank you, Chris. Kevin, if you would unmute, please.
Yes, thank you. You know, having lived here for about 30 years now in this particular neighborhood. So I have to say, having dealt with the Jefferson drill site, if the concerns that Mr. Parks referenced are found to be correct, so they seem to me to be egregious on the part of the current operator, not to mention, you know, previous operators, you know, in this regard. So I have lots of concerns, and I was part of pastoring a congregation of local residents for a number of years, and during that time there was a lot of the discussions about the Jefferson drill site, and there was a lot of deception and disregard even for what current statutes there are in terms of regulation regarding that drill site. So I have lots of concerns about the current discussion. I appreciate the conversation and the questions, but I think I want to have those issues that Mr. Parks was raising addressed in a really clear and decisive kind of way. And those three conditions do seem to me to be appropriate kinds of things that we would have as part of our neighborhood. Right?
Thank you,
so it's
Kevin.
more of a comment. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I think that's an important comment. And we look forward to Richard providing us with the documentation so it can be reviewed in a public venue and discussed. It's kind of hard to address the allegations right now without any documentation, because there's a lot that could end up in a lot of finger pointing and he said kind of conversation. John, did you have a comment?
I just wondering, so it sounds like from what Mr. Cordova said, the timeline has been pushed out. We're getting kind of used to that from the city. What is, based on that timeline, Steve, what is, and we have some suggestions on the table.
Yes.
Going forward, what should be our next steps to make a motion, or when?
So
or
I
how?
think Ted's outlining of the timeline buys us some time as a committee. I think there are some points that were raised. Chris and I need to meet with Ted anyway to discuss the actual reporting of the data, and maybe we can discuss. So I think there are three conditions which the operator is trying to get the city to approve. I'm not hearing any dissent about those conditions. So I think in general, the consensus, at least at this point, is that the community through the Planning and Zoning Committee supports those three conditions. But I think that there are three other conditions that have come to light this evening, and I think that have been pressed in the past as well. These are not new ideas before the Planning and Zoning Committee, and certainly the previous operators have heard them. That maybe we can enter into discussion with Ted and ENB, and we can come back to this committee with some answers to those three conditions. The other is, if Richard would provide the documentation in the interim, that would be something with sufficient time for ENB to actually consider those issues and be prepared to present to this committee. That would be helpful as well. So Richard, if you could do that at some point in the next few weeks, that would be great.
Yes, Steve, I have your email, so why don't I forward the documents to you? Is that all right?
Yeah, great. And I could share it with Laura and John and Chris and Ted. So Laura?
Yeah, so we have a little time, obviously. I think we also need to really focus, going back to what the zoning administrator's task is, which in part, but large part, is to look at the current imposed conditions, and there's an awful lot of them. And are they good enough, right? I mean, the decision, part of this is a review of conditions. The other part is a review of compliance, two different things. But are the existing conditions, and especially adding the 3 or 2, in other words, adding some other conditions, is that sufficient? Or are there any other conditions that are insufficient? Meaning, not for E and B, but for the operation in general. Are any of the conditions outdated, insufficient, anything like that? And we might have a little time. And then the other thing the zoning administrator would be doing is evaluating if there's been compliance with the conditions. So I personally am a little uncomfortable for a neighborhood council to make a finding that somebody's in compliance or not in compliance. I think we need to begin to focus on, maybe we've received this information. I'm trying to begin to focus what our final product will be, as it were.
I would like to not do that yet.
No,
since
not
we
doing
don't
yet.
have
I'm
any
saying,
documentation.
that's not what I was going to say. I'm just thinking how to get ourselves focused, not.
I think we're plenty focused, though. I think we have 3 conditions that have been provided by the operator that I don't hear any objections to. I think we've heard concerns from the community about additional conditions that should be applied and requirements on the operator and the site. One of which making it consistent with similar sites around the city.
Right.
That may follow what we could call a best practice. So I, in terms of the compliance part of it, Richard has raised some allegations. He said he's going to provide the documents. When he does, we could provide those to the committee. In terms of moving forward with suggestions, I think, Laura, your point is well taken, that we should all review the current conditions. And if there's anything else that we would like to suggest be submitted through the neighborhood council, that would be great. But I think we do have kind of a clear pathway forward in the interim, since there's no ZA hearing that's going to happen anytime soon that we can predict.
Right. And I'm trying to stay on top of that timeline. That's why we keep having these stops and starts. So in other words, we scheduled this because the last start in late January was that the hearing could be in March or April.
Right.
And,
but I
and
think that,
no, I'm saying, so we're stopping, starting because, and that's okay. We bought ourselves.
I don't think
some
we've
time.
ever stopped, though. I think what's happening is we're having a series of meetings where new information is coming forward from the community and requests from the community that's being heard by the operator that will go under consideration for a final motion to the neighborhood council. So I don't see them as stopping and starting. I see it as a continuum or a continuation of a discussion.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't see it as starting and stopping. I see it as an ongoing process. And I actually think having the opportunity for the community to meet on this issue more frequently than a one-off has been extremely positive. And we've got we've got the operator being willing to come forward to meetings. We have the community coming forward. I don't see that as a stop. I think that's a forward process that opens up issues and ideas and improves transparency.
Right. I'm sorry. I think I'll just explain a little better. The stop and start has been at executive committee for UNNC month after month. I'm saying now this coming governing board meeting, we have to schedule oil. And then the stop is when we do the final agenda. It's like, oh, never mind, we're not doing it this month.
Well, you could take that up with the
we have an overview stop and start. The committee is very good. And so anyway, so we're not scheduling it for March 3rd is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And
not
we might, however, end up having it on April 7th at the governing board. So I'm just saying we keep moving that calendar along.
I think that's okay. I think that what I'm going to suggest is that if Richard forwards the information to us in the next few weeks, we could compile that, discuss it, and then bring it to a subsequent, as soon as possible, Planning and Zoning Committee meeting.
Okay.
In the interim, Chris and I will try to get our calendars together to talk to Ted, not only about the release of data publicly through some kind of web format or something else, as well as the consistency issue across the city in terms of sites and the three conditions or concepts that were brought forward by Richard. And then we could bring that all as a package back to this committee for discussion in preparation for an eventual hearing.
Okay.
Does that seem like a decent plan to everyone? Ted, is that something that's agreeable to you? Richard, Chris? Anyone else?
I think that sounds great.
Louis, do you have a comment? I'm sorry, I thought I saw your hand up. You're
Whoops,
muted.
but you're
You're
muted.
muted, Louis. There you go.
Yes, I didn't have my hand up, but I would like to endorse all the comments of Richard Parks regarding
Okay,
this
great.
current situation.
Terrific. Thank you for that. So I think we have a plan to move forward both in the short and long term that will ensure that the community has an opportunity to weigh in on real information in the next few meetings.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks.
Ted, I want to thank you for your willingness to meet and try to iron all this stuff out.
And I want to thank everyone for being present and participating.
Great. And thanks, Steve and
Thank you,
Chris,
everyone.
for managing this segment of the Planning and Zoning Committee. It really helps to have a separate. This is the subcommittee is something fairly recent, and I think this is the first meeting where we really fully utilize it with you guys managing the process. So that was really helpful, and looking forward to that continuing into the future. So our final or second or penultimate item is number 6. Follow up to previous cases, ENS and old business. Anything that anyone wants to say about previous cases, we have the opportunity to discuss and take action. If anyone has anything.
I think it's only that Laura's supposed to share pizza with everyone.
And let me just say, the choice of pizza that we got has an awful lot of garlic on it. So you're just darn lucky we're not in the same house.
Hey, garlic's the great lost food group. So with nothing else on the agenda, can I move to adjourn the meeting?
We can. Let's go on to item number 7. With seeing no cases under item 6, no discussion. Item number 7, Steve, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
I will second that, and here we are adjourning at 8:25. My goodness.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. We'll
Thanks.
see you next time.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Okay.